in line with a national trend, fewer San Diego students are majoring in fields like art, history, and philosophy. KPBS education reporter Megan Burks looks at how universities are trying to win them back.
This is just a little tiny reserve.
Craig Callender is leading about 30 students on a nature walk along the bluffs just west of UC San Diego. The students are attending a summer bridge program and will be transferring there from local community colleges in the fall.
If you came in a few months ago, or especially like in March or April, then this would be covered with all of this black mustard, which gives off this kind of yellow flower. You see a lot of this stuff everywhere. It's a big invasive.
You might think these students are gearing up to study ecology or biology. They're actually arts and humanities majors. Callender teaches philosophy.
See all this dead stuff? That's all dead crystalline ice plant. And so one thing you might want to do is come out here with a big rake and rake up all that stuff so it doesn't grow back when it rains. Now, if you did that, you'd be obviously privileging the one plant over another. Why does one plant matter more than the other plant?
Callender wants the students to mull the philosophical questions behind environmental conservation and habitat restoration. He also wants them to understand that there's still a place for the humanities in this world.
If you scratch under the surface of almost any big decision and politics and conservation science and all sorts of things, you end up with the philosophical question of pairs.
The number of students choosing humanities majors at UCSD has fallen by 30% since 2003. Meanwhile, the number of science, math, and engineering majors has nearly doubled.
I absolve my scientific colleagues of direct responsibility.
Danny Widener directs the program that brought students to campus for the summer, called PATH. It's in partnership with the San Diego Community College District, and its goal is twofold: cement students' place in the humanities and
we sort of force them to become ambassadors for us. So part of the aspect is, even for those who maybe don't join the summer program, generally getting UCSD's profile higher on the community college level, especially around the humanities, right? Because the perception in town is very much that we're a STEM school.
But San Diego State, better known for liberal arts and business, has also seen a drop in humanities majors as the number of students interested in science increases. Whether it's leftover anxiety from the Great Recession, rising tuition, or more first-generation students, it seems science, math, and engineering have attracted students as a sure bet at employment.
What's happened is the tuition, the pressure, the anxiety of pushing people too soon to decide who they are, and that's unfortunate, because we need to have a period of discovery and reflection so that we can really grow into the people that we are.
People have been saying that there's a crisis in the humanities for at least a century, and I'm not sure about that.
Pamela Lack is the digital humanities librarian at SDSU.
I think the humanities has a lot to offer society, and to students who study the humanities are learning how to be good citizens, to think critically, to make sense of information and evidence, and to build arguments. And those are really valuable skills, regardless of what sector they're going to go into when they graduate.
Digital humanities teaches those skills through a technological lens, using technology to support the study, but also using the humanities to ask important questions about technology.
So the uneven impact of the digital, how algorithms create oppression. Safiya Noble talks about the algorithms of oppression and how our search engines like Google reinforce things like racism, sexism, classism, things like that.
Lack says the field offers students a window into just how relevant the humanities remain.
I don't want to paint this picture of, the humanities are flailing and digital humanities is wearing its superhero cape and it's going to sweep in and save the day. But digital humanities is a great opportunity for us to think about how to bridge the gap between the humanities and the sciences.
It can grow to 9 feet tall.
Back on the bluffs in La Jolla, literature major Kelly Clemens says she isn't sure yet what she'll do with her major, but she knows she's on the right path.
even just from today or from taking the classes that we've been taking, everything is interconnected. Like we're taking a jazz class and history of race in America, and those are intertwined. And I'd never thought about philosophical applications to environmental ecology before. So it's like you can use that, and you can use not even just the skills you learn, but just the ideas you learn about and apply that to literally everything you're learning about. And it's important. It's important to have like ethics in sciences.
It's too soon to tell, but enrollment data from the past couple of years suggests the downward trend for humanities may be reversing at UCSD. Faculty hope students like Clemen will keep the trend line moving in that direction. Megan Burks, KPBS News.
A surge in the nation's economy. Qualcomm gives up on a mega deal, and San Diego home prices hit a new record high. Earlier today, we spoke to SDSU marketing lecturer Mira Kopik for the Friday Business Roundup. So, Miro, a new report came out today that appears to look good for the U.S. economy. What's the significance of the latest GDP numbers?
Well, they're very robust numbers, over 4% growth rate, which is generally unheard of. You know, the U.S. economy tends to go at about 2 to 2.5%. But really driving it are two very important things. One is exports. So before these trade sanctions, a lot of soybean exports driving about a point of that growth, and about almost a half point is government spending when the spending bill happened a few months ago. So that's kind of fueling a lot of growth. And the last component that's fueling growth a little bit is consumers. They're buying more because unemployment is down and wages are going up a little bit.
Would you expect this trend to continue?
Not at 4%. I think the export number is a one-time number, and so you're going to see trends a little bit maybe better than the past few years, but really closer 2.5 to 3% rather than 4%.
So this week, China slowed down a deal for Qualcomm to spend $44 billion to buy NXP. How significant would that acquisition have been, and what happened?
This acquisition is paramount to Qualcomm's growth strategy. By buying NXP, a Dutch automotive chip manufacturer, they would have gone into a very complementary business to Qualcomm's telecom business, and they would have been a real powerhouse globally. By delaying the action and passing the merger deadline, the Chinese government basically just blocked this merger, which is really bad news in some ways for Qualcomm. They're doing pretty well. They've kind of turned a corner as a company, but this would really help them on a growth path that they have to rethink their strategy going forward.
And for some good economic news, the home sale prices here locally are up. They've actually reached record levels. Can we expect to continue to see this trend?
Yeah, the median home price in San Diego went up to $575,000 in the month of June, and believe it or not, that is not as the highest actually adjusted for inflation. The peak was November in 2005, but we're on that path to return to that. And once we cross about 650,000, we'll be in new uncharted territory.
We came here for the friends.
Turning now to Facebook, the company is reporting a bit of trouble. There are fewer people actually signing up for new accounts. So how bad is the situation?
Well, not as bad as it seems. Yes, Facebook yesterday lost nearly 20% of its value, and Mark Zuckerberg went from being the 4th richest man in the world to the 6th richest man in the world overnight. But the fact of the matter is Facebook actually has 2.3 billion users. They're still growing, just not at the rate that they were a year or two ago. The issue for Facebook is there are 3 big issues. Number one is that a lot of the younger demographic, the 18 to 35-year-olds, are migrating to other social platforms. Fortunately for Facebook, they are on WhatsApp or Instagram, which Facebook owns. So that's number one. Number two, there's a lot of issues around privacy and security. So Facebook has seen a major issue with, hate speech, fake news, and they're managing that while trying to keep the platform open and at the same time trying to ensure consumers' privacy. And that is a really fine, tightrope to walk. And third, Facebook is maxed out in the US and Europe in terms of the number of people that are on Facebook. So they're looking at international markets like Brazil, Indonesia, and India. They're really shut out of China because China has other social platforms that own the market like WeChat.
Thank you so much, Mira Kopik, marketing lecturer here at San Diego State University. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
The deadline passes to reunite separated immigrant families. Developers want to build homes on restricted land, and more Californians say they just can't afford to have kids. Join us for the KPBS Roundtable tonight at 8:30.
It's still hot out there, but temperatures are starting to get a bit closer to normal. Here's Justin Pavic with your weekend forecast.
It's all been about the heat over the last several days. We still have the heat. It's just not as intense as we go throughout the next couple of days. Talk about the weekend and perhaps some changes as we venture into next week. Already some changes with our warnings, excessive heat warnings, those going into the evening hours. But notice how far removed they are from the coast. We're talking about the deserts being impacted here out toward Borrego Springs. And even there, the next couple of days, you'll notice how those numbers come down a bit more. I do say a bit. It's still going to be above normal. Satellite radar, pretty quiet day for today. A couple of storms will start to pop over the mountainous terrain as we venture into tomorrow afternoon. And some of that monsoonal moisture comes back into place as we head into next week, where there could be a few additional thunderstorms. Low clouds again toward the coastline later on tonight. Oceanside 67, Chula Vista down to right around 70. We'll call it 69. The same in the metro as the clouds filter back in. They'll filter out as we head in towards Saturday afternoon. But again, like we saw today around central portions of San Diego County, not quite as warm. That marine layer, that onshore flow, a little bit more common. Scorching out over the interior. It's just not quite as intense. Borrego Springs, no 1 teens, but still hot, up to 108. San Diego 79, Oceanside 80. Should be right around 75, 76 for this time of the year. Notice as we take you to the coast the next several days, it's going to be in the low to the mid 80s. Looking at morning clouds, late day sunshine inland. It's going to be a little warmer, but not overly hot here into the low 90s in the mountainous terrain. Like I said, could see a storm pop tomorrow. Some of that monsoonal moisture comes back in early to mid next week, where there could be a thunderstorm around. And as we check out the deserts, it's also going to be on the warm side. Temperatures definitely running above normal, but it is not going to be excessively hot here, whereas it has been in the 1 teens more recently. Also have the Padres back at home here the next several days. Looks like weather conditions going to be pretty quiet for the game. Keep in mind these overnight lows over the deserts only cooling off into the 80s. For KPBS News, I'm meteorologist Justin Pavic. Back to you, Ebony.
Now recapping our top story tonight, a wildfire is burning east of the San Diego Zoo Safari Park. More than 200 acres have burned. Evacuations are in effect for several nearby neighborhoods. Evacuees are being directed to Ramona High School. You can find a full list on our website at kpbs.org. More than 3 million people call San Diego and Imperial County home, with 9,000 square miles of space. As part of our KPBS Explore project, we traveled to 5 communities to find out what makes them so special. Tonight, we visit Escondido. Here's the latest from our series, Where I Come From.
If you're afraid to go out because you might be stopped by immigration, then you're not taking your kids out. We have a large Latin community here, and so people, like I said before, are afraid of the immigration.
With immigration coming around and, to the communities, I think that's probably why the community is so tense.
How the atmosphere is within the police department, and you're working together in conjunction with INS, CBP, ICE, whatever they want to call themselves. Do you think that promotes people to come out and trust? Because that's a trust issue.
I live in an apartment community, mostly Hispanic, but they're not as welcoming. They just everybody sticks to their own.
Yeah, people live with this fear, but they deal with it. It impacts their lives. It changes their way of thinking.
I have talked to individuals who are young adults who are working but are really actually being taken advantage of because they work for less than minimum wage.
What I see is even though they may be illegal and didn't go through the proper whatever to get here. They're working class people.
Yeah, there is a lot of fear, and they may hide, and there may be resources available for them, but they don't trust. And so I think we have to look at all these issues, as hard as it may be, as uncomfortable as it might be for some, but we got to look at it. We have to look at that, and we've got to have a conversation, an open and honest conversation.
You can watch the rest of this series at kpbs.org/Where I Come From. And we'd like to hear what you think about our series. Join the conversation on the Facebook page, the KPBS Facebook page.
I'm Judy Woodruff. Tonight on the NewsHour, President Trump touts the economy's strong growth last quarter. We break down the numbers. Coming up at 7, right after Evening Edition on KPBS.
One way to beat the heat is to head to the movies. This weekend, KPBS cinema junkie Beth Arcamando recommends something old and something new.
First up, something old.
There's one thing we could do that would fix everything for us.
What? Pray for something to happen to Nick?
Something like that.
The weather's not the only thing heating up this summer as Noir on the Boulevard continues with the 1946 film The Postman Always Rings Twice. James M. Cain's hard-boiled classic screens Sunday at 1 p.m. at the Digital Gym Cinema. John Garfield and Lana Turner star in this tale of lust and murder. Then on Monday, the temperature continues to rise with the contemporary noir Body Heat, also part of the year-long film noir series that I co-host at Digital Gym Cinema. Then fasten your seatbelt for something new. It's the latest entry in the Mission Impossible franchise, Fallout. If this film only had this bathroom brawl, it'd be worth the price of admission. I wasn't a fan of the franchise until Brad Bird and Christopher McQuarrie re-energized it with humor and jaw-dropping action. Plus, they deflate Tom Cruise's action hero image by constantly beating the crap out of him, which I have to confess, I really enjoy, since he always seemed too smug for me on screen. So there you have it, the perfect weekend fare of the ridiculously fun Mission Impossible Fallout, as well as classic film noir. Beth Arcamando, KPBS News.
And finally tonight, some video you've got to see. A Hawaiian man surfing in Namibia caught a huge wave, not tall, but long. Koa Smith rode this wave for a solid 2 minutes and traveled more than a mile, staying upright through 8 barrels. And it was all captured by a drone's camera. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. Have a great night.